All right, this is Philip Steiger at thebest3.com, and we're going to take a look at one of the features in Project Dog Waffle, PD Howler 9.6. It's not the first version. I think we had it in 9.5 and maybe even slightly before that. No, actually, I don't know, somewhere around then, maybe 9.2. It's the particle modeler, and you can see that here under the filters in the animated category, the particle modeler. And I'm not going to load it yet. I want to show you first what you do with that. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with it. Here's an example of an animation that I created with it. This one essentially has something that looks like the number 9 moving around and eventually come to its final resting position here. And so now here are some other versions with a slightly different character set and different effect. This one has also what we call a secondary motion. And you see it's sort of an elastic band effect. It's being deformed, distorted, and then there is more other effects we can apply to that. This one here, for instance, is doing sort of self-displacement. It's bumping into its own particles. So when you see it gradually move here, it's kind of deforming or displacing it. But once it's at the final resting position, there's no more movement, no more bouncing into each other, and it's all resting. Then there is also another one that's called Just Alive, and that one will essentially show, especially once it's static, when it's in the final resting position, it's going to be still moving a little bit by itself. You can see that right there. So while it's moving, not really much there, but once it's in its final resting position right there, you can still see it move a little bit. And so, of course, you can put them all together, and that's really when you get some really great effects. And that is what you see here. You got the elastic band effect, you got the bumping and displacement, and then you got the still alive and moving a little bit at the end. So let me just show you how to do that. Right. So first of all, we'll go to erase the frame to black, and then create an animation. I'm going to go with 234 frames, and then the first thing we'll do is go to the animated category for the filters and look for particle modeler. All right. So now I'm not recording the whole screen here. I got my taskbar at the bottom, so I'm going to resize this a little bit. But if you are, and by the way, let me show you that. If you are here on the window compact full screen mode, then you are really on full screen and the taskbar goes away. Now you can't see it because I'm not recording that here. But that's basically what you can do. If you do want the taskbar, simply uncheck this compact full screen mode and you're back in business with the taskbar visible. Now, what I'm going to do next is, as I said, let's go here, animated particle modeler. So the first thing we'll need to do is create our cloud. Now you can do that in a couple of ways. You can add a sphere and then move it around. You can add another sphere, move it somewhere else. And that can be at some point what you want to display. So get ready to render, and you now have two fluffy clouds there that are ready for some action. I'm going to go create a new one, and this time I'm going to draw it. So there's an airbrush option for that as well. And with the airbrush, I'm going to draw that perhaps up here in the top view. I'm going to say, let's draw something like a number 9 kind of backwards like this, right? Or maybe something like a circle followed by another stroke going this way, right? And then here we go. And now we have the letter D, or the letter, what is that? B, or the letter P, or let's see if we rotate it with the right button. I'm sure we can get it to look like number 9. Here it is, something like that. Anyway, so whatever you want. If you want to reactivate this to do some more changes to it, by the way, I mean, you can change, you can draw some more here and do this, or you could say unfreeze it. Right now everything is frozen here, but you can unfreeze it. Now it's one object that you can move around. You can select move it around, scale it a little bit, and then also add some deformation to that. Deform it a couple of times, give some random noise to the particles, and then get ready to render again. And so now we have a slightly different, maybe more noisy, messy look. All right, so with that in mind, let's go create a new one and say, let's go with something like the circle. Up, we need to select airbrush, You might want to change the size a little bit, and then go a circle here, and then something like the number 9. All right, so okay. Let's go and unfreeze it because we want to deform it a little bit. Click a couple of times on the randomize. There you go. You can also adjust some of the parameters here, like the lighting. There's like a directional light and I know, a self lighting or a glow effect, ambient light. You can change the color for that. You can do self shadowing. A couple of different ways to give it a bit more 3D depth or a flat look, right? So that done. Now, one thing you want to do is, if you want to use this with different experiments for the animation side, right here on the animate, you'll play with these parameters to explore a little bit. And in order to do that properly, you'll probably want to use the same cloud again and again, but with different parameters. So it's a good idea to save this cloud. Right? So what you can do is you can save it, click here, and the place where you will save it is right here in your Steam area, under the Steam apps, where you'll see your common installed games, and I only have one here. It's not a game, it's an app. It's Howler 9.5. Actually, it should be 9.6. I don't know, the folder became 9.5, but it's really version 9.6. And what we can do is go to Howler in here, and then you'll see a number of subdirectories, and the folder here with clouds. Let's go in here, and that's why I saved it earlier as PD9. It comes with 4 of them already. Just save it as another one. Let's call this one just 9. Right, so here's number 9.cld will be added automatically. That's our cloud format. So that way we can always go back and load it. Right, when we go open, we can say select cloud number 9, and there we go. So you know, if you modify it, if you mess with it and you don't like it, let's say you add some more airbrush here, you add a height map, you add a sphere, whatever it is, and you messed it up and you can't really find a way to undo that. Well, what you can do is just go to open and load this one back in. Alright, so we have this number, and now let's go animate it. So you've seen a couple of different effects that this can have. One thing that it can do, and by the way, I need to make sure that I'm seeing the bottom of the screen here, so let's scale this down a little bit since I'm not capturing the whole screen. There you go. So we have a scroll bar, a scrub bar here for the animation, and it actually remembers the most recent animations that I had already created. As long as I don't exit out of the program, it will be able to reapply the same animation on whatever cloud is currently loaded. Right. So one thing that we do see though is that it's got a different orientation, and I think that's because when I created the original cloud, I didn't do that in this view, the top view. I may have done it on the front view or the left view. So I need to adjust this for the last keyframe. Now, I don't know exactly where that last keyframe is, but there is a way to see it right here with these on the lower left here. You can see go one frame at a time or one keyframe at a time. So you can advance or reverse one keyframe at a time. And so here you can go to the very last frame, right? And then go back one keyframe, and you are at the last keyframe that you need to change. And so I'm going to go and select, make sure I'm working on the cloud. You can adjust the position of the cloud. You can edit the light, edit the fill light. There's an ambient, there's a sunlight and a fill light, and then there's a camera that could be messed with, and then there's also of course, how do you change it? You can change the scale, the angle, and the position, the moves. So I'm gonna go and change the cloud and give it some rotation, and what I want to do is really make it look like the number 9, and in fact maybe not all the way down there. Maybe I'll need to position it up a little bit more, and something like this. Alright, so I'm going to keyframe that. Here's a keyframe add, create a keyframe. If you wanted to delete all of your prior keyframe, there's an option here. I'm not going to do that here in this case. I'm going to stay with my keyframes, and I may want to change the orientation here. Here it's nice to see a bit of a rotation, but here at this point I really would like to see it as number 9. So I'm going to go and find my nearest keyframe. There's one here. Let's go rotate there until we find number 9, something like this, maybe with the right button. You need to use both the left or the right button, right? Some of them, right button will spin around this vertical axis, and left button has both x-axis and z-axis here. So let's go, we keyframe that, and then let's see if we need to keyframe the next. This is good. All right. By the way, this is showing it sort of pre-render or render the preview. If we uncheck this, we have a more wireframe kind of look here, just a grid at the bottom, which we can disable. And you can also just keep it to have a bit of a reference. And then you can see sort of a cloud pattern for where the particles will be that make up the cloud. So at this point, I'm ready to render that. And what I'd like to do is really show some of the effects. So one of them here is the secondary motion. And what that one does is create this trailing effect. See it right here. Right? So it builds sort of a... And it's really nice because sometimes it makes it look like some galactic clouds. And so here you go. Let's go render that. Now this will take a little while, so I'm not using the highest possible size for my frames here. This is not 1280 by 720. It's like what did I choose? 640 by 360. Not sure that it would make it much slower though if I went to higher, but I want to run through this a little bit faster for the sake of the tutorial and not waste your time. So I'm gonna go and pause the recording here and get back shortly before it's done. Alright, and I'm back and it's almost completed here. You see the final position, last keyframe has already been reached, but now it's kind of reaching that final shape really because the secondary motion adds a little bit of delay. There's a laziness to it here of about 10 frames, I think. I'm not sure what the number 10 represents, but I think it's the number of frames. Because one thing you can do is you can increase that, and then it will take much longer for it to reach that final position. Alright, so as soon as this is done, we'll close the particle modeler and we'll replay this animation, and you can see what the effect was for that laziness, creating this distortion or secondary motion. Now we'll do another thing. We'll store this. This is a very recommended step you will want to do, is store these images on disk, and you can easily play them and load another one that's already stored. If you're done and you don't need them anymore, just close them, delete them. That will remove them, I think, from the disk drive, but it's good to have them as long as you need them. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to go back and do another one. So I'm going to create, first of all, an empty frame. Hello, hello. Okay, had a little trouble swapping here. All right, so I'm going to go create a blank frame again, 234 frames of pure bliss, and let's go filter, animated, particle modeler. Right. So what's the first thing we'll need to do is to load or open our cloud that we had saved. There it is. Here's the saved cloud again. And if you want to actually make it look a little bit different, we can certainly unfreeze it and do some more changes to it. Right? We could scale it a little bit, something like this, or we could also do some randomization, deform it some more, and say that's the one we want to use now. All right. So with that in mind, let's go to animate and see if we scrub. Oh, and I need to resize my window because I'm not capturing the whole screen. There you go. So here we go. This time we will use the displacement field, and as we go and animate it, you can see that it's creating sort of a bumpy effect to these particles. They displace themselves. Against what? Well, pretty much against themselves. I don't know. It might be something else. I'll have to experiment and see if it displaces against something else, like maybe the swap image. I think it's essentially against themselves. But one thing you can see is you can add some noise to that. Let's see a little bit bigger number here, 5. And yeah, it's hard to say how much you need to really see a big difference there. There's a displace. I don't know, it's probably an amount of displacement or something like that. Let's go try 99. Yeah, there's definitely some distances reached here. displaces quite a bit more. Another thing, by the way, you might want to do is before you render is turn the grid off, because you don't want that grid to be rendered with it. Let's see one more thing here. So, oh yeah, so let's enable the just alive as well. And that way, when it's at the final position, it still keeps moving. See here, even though the cloud is not moving in terms of its position or angle, the particles themselves are still moving, right? So it will appear alive. When you render that, you can see the particles are still kind of moving. It looks like it's breathing, basically. And so let's see what else we want to. Well, let's combine everything, right? Let's do the secondary motion, maybe just a little bit of that, maybe just 3 or 4. Let's see what that gives us. Yeah, a little bit of a trail, all right? And there you go. Now we need to perhaps give it a different orientation here. Let's say we want to actually do something else with it. Let's say we find the nearest keyframe, like this one here, and we will rotate it. Uh-oh, we won't. Let's go change the secondary motion. There you go. Oh, and I suppose it's being deformed because of the secondary motion. Yeah, not much we can do really. That is going to distort it. So let's go and just take it as is and render that. Render, go. And so once again, I'm going to sign out here and stop the recording and come back as soon as this is close to done. All right, and here we go, back, almost done. We are about 75–80% done. And I think this took about 2 or 3 minutes. Like I said, I don't have the very latest, fastest graphics card or CPU. This is 2nd generation i7 mobile edition in a nice Asus laptop, 17-inch screen. So your mileage will vary and can definitely be faster than this. What we want to do next is to see what this animation looks like. Looks like I still have the rendering of the grid. Oh yeah, I had it checked. I forgot to turn it off. So let's see if the grid actually shows. No, it's not. Okay, so it's only showing there in the preview, but actually in the rendering it's not there. So that's good. All right, so here's the animation we just got, like this. And then, sometimes this is great, but just not quite finished yet. One thing you could do is add a little bit of delay to that, or ghosting, right? You go to the filter, the timeline rather, and find the animated filters at the very bottom, and there is a ghosting effect, right? So you can add maybe 4 or 5 frames of ghosting, and that will perhaps give it a little bit more motion blur. So that could be another interesting effect to apply as well. And there we go. So there's that. So now let's just apply everything here one more time. Let's do something totally new from scratch. Animate, create. Let's say 234 frames. That was an easy number to enter. And let's go to filter, animated, particle modeler. And again, I will resize it so we can see the bottom, because I'm not capturing the full screen here. There you go. And this time we'll do, I don't know, let's do PD, as in Project Dog Waffle. So I'm going to go size, airbrush, right? So we're going to do P, let's do lowercase p and uppercase, lowercase, let's see, do we do lowercase or uppercase? I don't know, let's do P like this, and then D, something like that. Does that look interesting? It's upside down there, PD. Yeah, why not? Perhaps a little bit unfreeze and a little bit of deformation to that, and randomize and redo. There you go. Why not? Let's use that. So I'm going to go and save that one also, and that will be a cloud called PD. PD. Save that. All right, and we're ready to go to animate this. All right, so here now I'm going to go and create the animation from scratch. So first of all, let's go to the render preview. It's a little bit faster. It's also a little bit safer in case you have a GPU that has some problems rendering very large particles. You don't want to run out of time or have the GPU get stuck on that. So it's a little bit safer that way. I'm going to go and clear all of the frames. And so I'm going to start at the beginning and say that we want to select the the camera and move it all the way into the center. So I'm going to move it back here vertically with the left button, drag that. Now if I want to, I can also with the right button move it down a little bit, and then also make it smaller. There is a scale here, scale or zoom, so make it even smaller, something like this. So it's going to start from very far away, and then by about here at this keyframe position, I'm going to go and make it bigger, right? Something like this. I'm also going to bring it up a little bit, so that I'll bring it closer and up. And I'm also going to rotate it a little bit, something like that. All right, so now we can keyframe that. That one's good. So now we have already this little movement here going like that. Now about here, we will bring it closer. So we need to select the movement, and with the left button, bring it forward. Drag this thing down, bring it closer to us. All right, not too high. Let's go bring it down a little bit like this. Okay, and that will be a very fast movement, right? So with regard to the secondary motion, that will be a really interesting effect here. Let's go keyframe that, and then we'll do a little bit of slowing down and waiting for things to settle. So we next keyframe will just move a little bit closer, but not that much more. And then we suddenly start yanking it around. We sort of do a little movement to the left and movement to the right, and then also spin it, right? So at that point here, we'll move it to the left and keyframe that, and then go here very quickly to the right and also rotate it. Let's give it a little bit of a spin here. That will be the right button there, something like this. There you go. And then here we will kind of finish that spin in a full turn like this, still doing the rotation, but then also bring it back into the center and bring it back a little bit farther away. I don't know, let's see. You know, we could even scale it or scale it negative here. No, let's keep it like that. Okay, and there. Now I'm not going to go to the very last frame. What I wanted to do is really have just a dozen of frames left where it's going to stay here, but we know the secondary motion is going to need 10 frames to really get to that final pose. So let's go and add this, enable displacement map, enable just alive, and do a little bit of a render preview on that. Perhaps go to the first one and see what it does. Now look at how it's deforming it as it's coming to us. The inner parts are being dragged much faster. If we don't do the render preview, you can see how it's totally deforming it here, creating a really, and then at the end it has a secondary, or the just alive movement, like Brownian motion. So that will be an interesting one. All right, let's go and render this puppy. Let's go render that. Oh wait, what's this keep frames? Keep or clear animation frames. Not exactly sure. Let's explore that another time. All right, let's go. So that's it for a quick reintroduction. I had done a couple of tutorial videos on the particle modeler earlier, and you may have seen some really interesting animations. This is just sort of a revival. I wanted to explore a few things. I think I'm going to explore a few more because I saw sometimes while experimenting with this that the movement, especially with this elastic laziness on the secondary motion, could easily be used to create something like that looks a bit like a galactic circle, you know, like an elliptical galaxy. Or not an elliptical, what's the other way? You know, that looks like the Milky Way and has some arms on it. So that's an effect I want to explore a little bit. We can move this thing here to the side. We can see the animation as it's being rendered. And again, I'm going to pause this very quickly until the recording. I'm going to pause the recording until it's ready to almost complete. Let me go function F11 and I'll be back soon. And we're almost done here. Last couple of frames, you see it's no longer moving, but the elastic laziness here is bringing the last couple of frames into final position. It's still moving a little bit now. That's the movement from Just Alive. Very subtle though, not a whole lot of that. Let's see. Almost done. A few more. Down here you see we're reaching the end of the scrub bar. And we're done. Alright, let's go close this and play it. Alright, so that's just an idea of some of the many really funky things you can create with the particle modeler. Of course, at some point you'll want to save it out as an AVI file in your preferred codec. I would recommend Lagarith if you still need to work on it and you want it lossless. Very nice compression, but still lossless. And or Xvid, great final output for even more compression, but not lossless. Then you can also save it as an image sequence if you prefer to do that. Other things you may want to do though is perhaps add a little bit more pizzazz to that. Perhaps we need to go back to the timeline, and in the timeline find some tools like the lens flares, which can be, if you click on the flare settings here, you can see perhaps this setting here. That would be something you can add right there. See, the preview here is where the particles are moving up. So one thing you could do here is perhaps put this little thing here and kind of track it, right? Have it right on it. So change the level a little bit and change it over time to increase it. So I'm gonna go initially small. Let's go and keyframe that, and then as we move up, we need to perhaps bring it up here and keyframe that. And then as we move up higher, maybe we want to kind of keep it in the middle but make it bigger so it kind of covers it. And there you go. And then so suddenly we have kind of a big mess here, right? Keyframe that. And now at this point we can probably move this thing perhaps to the side, do a little counter dance there, and then have here this thing go down this side, and voila, right? And perhaps bring it down in reason here, there. So we have basically an animation that's being rendered on top of that one, and apply that. And voila, so here we have now our final animation. Okay, alright, that's it for now. Long tutorial, I know. Have fun, thanks for watching, and thank you for using Project Dog Waffle Howler 9.6.